So my name is David. I was born and raised in Örebro, which is a smaller town in Sweden. I was kind of raised in a repair store, one of these, third-party phone repair places, which you see in every street corner. You could say that I was born in one of those. So my father, when he was younger, he started selling computers and stuff. And then you could say he pivoted into phone repair in 2011, kind of. And I guess I was about, the head math is not so good right here, but I was probably like 14, 15 years old when I repaired my first phone. And that was about 10 years ago. So I've been learning how to repair smartphones from a young age. And I, of course, became very interested in this. And I've been seeing, for years and years and years how, we're buying new phones. And for a couple of years there was some form of innovation that we saw with new smartphones. But then if you look at the past few years, it's not really the case. There are new phones coming out each year. You have these different competing brands. But is there really anybody who needs a new device, right? I don't really think so. So before I delve into more about the market and Refurbly, I just want to introduce myself a bit more. So I come from you could say a marketing background where I started, consulting at a young age, making ads and stuff. And my motivation for running this company really comes from, wanting to build my own thing. And I had this thing where I was going to go study, go to Stockholm, build my career like most of us who are outside of Stockholm want to do. And I started having some health problems. Doctors said like you should give up. I had to quit sports. It was a shit show. But then I decided to do my own research, and find my own conclusions. And I did manage to find doctors abroad that could help me. And I think a lot of that motivation is driving Refurbly as a company today. So now over to the important part. So what Refurbly does. So Refurbly is an e-commerce company that sells refurbished phones through our e-commerce platform. So we're both, you could say, a manufacturer. So we buy broken electronics, and we're a e-com company. So we sell it, we distribute it. And we mainly target consumers, but we also have B2B. We also have companies that buy used phones from us. And our used phones are, they're at the same quality. They have all the functionality. They have a longer warranty than you have when you buy a new phone. And they're about 60% cheaper most of the time than buying a new phone. And so our business model is quite simple, as you might hear, but we're going into a market which is super locked up, you could say. So other than selling these devices and refurbishing them, we also offer our own insurance, which is quite unique, where we're actually both the seller of the device and the repairer. So in the market, you usually never see an electronics retailer or a telecom operator, a network operator, is both selling you the device and repairing it. There are usually two different parties. And the big players in the market, these big electronics resellers, they don't really want to have repair. They just want to sell because that's how they grow. That's how their employees get bonuses. That's how the market works. It goes for telcos. It goes for electronics retailers. And that's the problem. So what we are seeing is that the existing players in the market, even if they know that used phones are good and that they're just as good as new phones, they have the same functionality, longer warranty, they're cheaper, better for the customer. It doesn't really matter if they know all these facts because they're locked up in a business model where they have a really tight relation with manufacturers. And I mean, we have seen how manufacturers are moving into software and services because they're realizing that less and less people are buying new devices and they're holding on to them for a longer time. Usually, like before, we had a 1 year use before we switched up. Now it's about a 2 to 3 year lifetime for each phone. So they're seeing this. I mean, they're not stupid, right? So what we want to come to with our company and the change we want to make in the market is to make the manufacturers realize that, guys, we know that you want to manufacture, but if you want to have these customers stay with your devices for the long term, with the software, the services, the apps, the in-app purchases, you have to maintain this user base. And I think the best way to do that is to embrace refurbished devices and extend the lifetime of phones. And even though there is huge competition in the market, you see that there are coming new brands with cheaper phones. There are caveats with everything. So even if you have phones that's promise that they're more easily repairable, you have other problems that come with that. So like my point of view of the market is, even if you come, there's a new company that comes that says all of our materials are recyclable, they come from, a good source, it doesn't really matter, because in my opinion, it's all about overconsumption. It's not about making a new phone which is made out of renewable material or something like that. It's all about decreasing the amount of newly manufactured phones and extending the lifetime. So how are we going to solve this? So what we're doing right now is we're growing our e-commerce. We're currently selling in Sweden, and we did raise our first seed round in June this year. And we managed to, you could say I was kind of alone in the company. It was me and a few repair technicians, but now we've grown to be a much bigger team. And we did manage to raise money through some really cool investors who are big names in the Nordics, in the Nordic telecom industry. And it's Telia Soneras, or Telia Company's previous CEO, Johan Dendelind, Erik Hallberg, Kenneth Carberg, Emil Nilsson. So we have a really good advisory and investor community, you could say, that are really active in the company, that have seen, from the other side of the table what the reality is like at a telco or at a manufacturer or at an electronics company. And they're really bringing huge value to the company, where we're going into a market that is not so keen, you could say, to changing the way of how you acquire customers. Because today, selling a new phone is how you acquire a customer a lot of the times if you're a telecom company. So when we come into the game and say we want to offer used phones, then we're kind of messing with the how it's supposed to be done. So that's a bit about us, our team, and what we've been doing so far. And I want to delve in a little bit into how manufacturers, just to give an example of how manufacturers make it harder for refurbishers to repair a device. So I think everybody has heard about the term planned obsolescence. And there are many ways where manufacturers make sure that companies like us, who are third-party repairers, cannot always make it easy for the customer to have their device repaired. So, for example, some phone manufacturers install software that makes it so that the display sends a message to you when you buy a used phone that has been repaired, that says that, hey, this is not an original display, you've been fooled. And that's the message that pops up in your phone, for example. Even if you take two new phones and that you just bought from the manufacturer or reseller, and you move these displays from one over to the other, right? So it's original displays. The message that says that it's not an original display will pop up. So it's basically lies. So it's for me, it's we have two, I guess, not, you wouldn't call it enemies, but we're a bit fighting with them in a way. The telecom market, which is stuck in a model where you sell new stuff to get customers, manufacturers who are blind to the fact that people want to keep their devices for longer. And I think it's really exciting, to build an e-commerce company that is changing a market which has been quite still for some years. I mean, the telecom market, even though 5G is coming and you have new technologies, it's not really like people are super excited by the market. And I think that it's really time for some new player to enter and have a more sustainable offering. And I think that the consumers want this. So I guess that's a bit of an introduction, and I'll happily take questions about phone repair or used electronics. And I really thought it was very interesting that what Gustav was pitching from GoKind, and I think we should grab a coffee if possible, and it would be really cool.
I love that. And we do have one question from the audience, from Dimitri. How long have you come with insurance?
So we launched our offering, and we have partners that are backing the insurance. Of course, we're not our own insurance company, but it's just to give you an idea of what it is. It's basically the cheapest insurance that you can get for a phone in Sweden, actually, today, where it gets that cheap because we have the whole logistics stack in-house. So when you have insurance at like another telecom company, for example, it's never the same company. It's not linear. It's always that you have to go to somewhere else. And I would basically say that those insurances are made to not be used, and we actually make money if they're used. So we are the repairer, and we get paid for repairs. Yeah.
Awesome. And then we have a question from Will. What is the end goal for Refurbly? What do you want to offer your customer? And what would be the dream offer?
Yeah, so we are looking into going into telco offerings. And if you know about the 4 big telecom companies in Sweden, for example, you know what they offer. It's services that are related to, data and calling and SMS and stuff like that. So we're of course looking in that direction. But right now we're focused in scaling the e-commerce business and offering, I think for us, the end goal is to make sure that the customers never have a second thought about buying a used device. It should always be, that trust. And we've seen so many, like I've personally seen so many companies that try this, and they have that short-term perspective where it's just buy cheap, sell cheap, use the cheapest parts. And for us, I think transparency and being able to show to the customer in detail what the phone contains and what repairs have been done, for example, is something that we're looking into to increase the trust.
Awesome. And we have one more question here from Tom. Where do you get parts for refurbished phones? Do you encourage people to send their old phones to you?
That's a great question. So the parts that we use are a mixture of used parts and newly manufactured parts. So we will never get away from the fact that we have to buy newly manufactured parts at some times. But I would say that a great majority of the parts that we use are used parts. So for example, when a display cracks, when your phone screen actually gets cracked, it's usually just the glass part that is cracked, and the underlying, the technology under the digitizer, the LCD or the OLED panel is actually still working. So we refurbish those displays and we put them back on the new phone. We use as many used parts as possible. And we do buy a great majority of our phones from companies. So we're targeting companies, I would say more than consumer buyback. But we are looking into being a company where you can get the most bang for your buck, or how you could say it. So when you're going to sell your device, you should get the most of it from us. So that's the idea.
Awesome. I think that's all the questions we have for now.